Hello, my name is Jason. He is
Monty.
And today we're doing a random talk on that controversial topic, and we're talking about capital punishment, aka the death penalty. Now, today, before we get started, I wanted to tell everybody this is obviously going to be based on our opinions, which I believe are based off facts. But if you don't agree with them, that's alright, and we can have difference in opinions. That's perfectly fine. So let's get started. Your first thoughts on it.
Alright.
By the way, I think we have a difference in opinion, so this could get interesting.
I believe that the death penalty, or capital punishment,
Jump right into it then.
is acceptable for the fact that the Constitution was based on the fact that we are given the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Yes.
And that if we take this away, if we infringe on another person's rights to the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then we have that taken away from us. That is the point of prison, of jail,
Yes.
and everything else. This is it's touchy.
And also that's a fundamental idea, just to the way our country works, including our Constitution. So,
Yes. But this punishment is a thing that we consider greatly, and I believe that capital punishment, it's deeper, and it should be considered as with higher reverence. But I believe that it should still exist.
okay, well, I do not agree with you, but I'm going to keep it respectful. I've noticed that there are a lot of proponents to this, and there's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons, and so we could spend all day talking about.
These are my notes.
Okay, sorry. I didn't bring any notes because he didn't tell me that I could bring them. If I would,
You text me and you said, "Can we research the topic?"
But you
I
never
thought
told
that
me.
meant the same
Okay,
thing.
we're getting to it. Okay, but we got off track there.
Sorry.
Okay, I believe that the death penalty, in my opinion, is wrong. Here's why. There is several different factors. In Texas, that is one of the largest states in the United States. It is also, I think it has one of the highest population rates and also one of the highest death rates. Now let's compare that to a state that has not legalized the death penalty, New York City, which is also a much bigger state, but they contain around the same amount of people. Now, what a lot of people will tell you who are for the death penalty, they say that because the criminal knows that they're going to get the death penalty, they will not act. Well, we can obviously tell by looking at death records or murder charges in the state of Texas compared to New York, which does not have the death penalty. This is not the case. The murder charges that are brought up are over 107,000 a year in Texas, which has the death penalty, and only 77,000 in New York City. And New York has a much, much higher population. Now, moving on, let's look at this as a moral debate. Now, a lot of people will say, what if somebody came into your house and they slaughtered everybody that you know right in front of you? How would you respond? My response is, that's also a self-defense issue, by the way, gun rights and stuff. But the higher thing is that we should not be looking at whether or not it's okay to kill that person. We should be looking at, is it okay for us to take revenge, or say the government has the right to take life away from an individual? That's the conversation that we should be having. For example, in this Boston Marathon bombing, I think that's the conversation that needs to be having, not whether or not we should kill this guy. We should be asking, what is the appropriate response that should be taken? And I do not think that the death penalty is right under those circumstances. Because, as a Christian, in the Old Testament, we do know that it says an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. But, if we're looking at it like that, so let's say that we are going to look at a law from the Old Testament. If we're going to do that, then we have to look at other laws in the Old Testament. So I don't think that's appropriate. And also in the Bible it says that it is not okay for us to take revenge, and that God will vindicate for us. But I want you to. Sorry, I've been talking.
I'm gonna start with your last argument from the Bible, morally looking at Old Testament law. Now, the Old Testament law is separated into several sectors. Moral law is the law that we still follow today. An eye for an eye and a tooth for the tooth is a moral
Yes.
law. And this is something that we still follow today. Now, Jesus did say that there were times that we take this too far. I read that today, as a matter of fact. But beyond that, the 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States states, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law.
Well, okay, let's look at that. But I think that could be taken several different ways, and I do not think that was meant for the death penalty. I agree that what you're saying from a certain point of view is correct. But from this point of view, let's also look at it like this. Obviously, we don't pay taxes, but our parents do.
Yes.
Now, let me ask you, because one day you are going to pay taxes, would you feel comfortable, because there have been a lot of botched attempts at capital punishment, would you feel okay with your tax dollars paying for someone to be tortured? Would you feel okay with that? Because that's what happened.
All right.
I mean, really.
Now, this is your argument for cruel and unusual punishment, right? You're saying that death is the same thing as having people put onto the electric chair, things such as that. But it is not. As a matter of fact, the only case I can think of where someone suffered due to the death penalty was a while back, and he only suffered for a few seconds. This has become more humane as our technology progresses,
But
therefore it is not inhumane.
But let's also look at the amount of people who are killed for no reason that got the death penalty and they were completely innocent. The numbers would astonish you.
Right.
So I mean,
but that's the thing. The Constitution says that you cannot be put under death without due process of law. You cannot have your life taken away from you. Now, if constitutionally, which is something we look at with law, or at least we used to, I won't get into that political debate.
I believe they're telling us that we're about to wrap it up, so we
yeah.
probably need to wrap it up. I know we've been saying
But my point is, the Constitution says that capital punishment is not illegal under due process of law. Now we need to up our standards for due process of law, obviously.
You know what? I'll give you that. Okay, I'll give you that. But so we do need to end the video. I know we've been talking and arguing about. So I guess our next controversial topic that we'll talk about is probably tax reform or something. But
stick to the politics.
Yeah. In all honesty, this was never to be about changing somebody's opinion. This was just to start a conversation. And
I wouldn't mind changing your opinion, just by the way. He may not want to, but I would.
No, I think it's more about starting a conversation and letting you, the viewer, sort of decide on your own and looking at all of the facts and making your own decision. So I think that's the most important thing above all this. Anything lastly?
No.
Not related to the debate.
Nah.
Okay.
Right.
So I think that's everything. Of course, we have song inspection next week. If you decided, it's your month to decide.
Oh, I have not, but I will.
Okay. So with all that said and done, my name is Jason. He is
Monty.
Signing off.